41. Taitani Sevita Bhushu Purusha Pachit Sheshato Dharma Shilo Rajaloka Patir Guru Taitani Naseveta Bhushu Purusha Pachit Shesato Dharma Shilo Rajaloka Patir Guru Before we go on, let's share something. I was just visiting at the Christian house in Toronto. Yeah, they do the Sanskrit in a very nice way. Each devotee will recite one line. And that way everyone in the room. From the men's side, ladies' side, back and forth. One line.
Ataitani Naseveta
Bhushu Purusha Pachit Sheshato Dhamma Shilo Rajaloka Patir Guru
Taitani Naseveta
Bhushu Purusha Pachit
Vishato Dharma Shilo
Rajaloka Patir Guru
Ataitani Naseveta
Bhushu Purusha Pachit
Sheshato Dharma Shilo
Rajaloka Patir Guru
Taitani Naseveta
Bhushu Purusha Pachit Rajaloka Patir Guru Ataitani Naseveta Bhushu Purusha Pachit Sheshato Dhamma Shilo Rajaloka Patir Guru Ataitani Naseveta Bhushu Purusha Pachit Sheshato Dhamma Shilo Rajaloka Patir Guru.
All right, well, not bad for the first time. I want to try to just make sure everyone stays awake. There was a preacher who went to heaven and who was in line in front of him was an Uber driver. So the Uber driver, they said, "Come on in." And then the preacher came up and they said, "Well, you're going to have to go back again and try again." He said, "Wait a minute, you just let the Uber driver in." He said, "Yeah, well, whenever you were speaking, people were sleeping, but whenever he was driving, people were praying. So yeah, so don't let me come back. Okay, somebody else. Rooms together, please. Therefore, Itani, all these, never, Seveta, coming in contact, Udoshu, those desire well-being, Purusha, person, Parshit, in any circumstances, Vishesha, specifically, Dharmashila, those who are on the progressive path of liberation, Raja, the king, Lokapati, public leader, Guru, Brahmanas, and Sannyasis. Translation in purport, or should we call that together, please? Therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with or above-mentioned religious principles. Who would like to read?
The Brahmanas are the religious preceptors for all other castes, and the sannyasis are the spiritual masters for all the castes and orders of society. So also are the king and the public leaders who are responsible for the material welfare of all people. The progressive religionists and those who are responsible human beings, or those who do not want to spoil their valuable human lives, should refrain from all the principles of irreligiosity, especially illicit connection with women. If a Brahmana is not truthful, all his claims as a Brahmana at once become null and void. If a sannyasi is illicitly connected with women, all his claims as a sannyasi at once become false. Similarly, if the king and the public leader are unnecessarily proud or habituated to drinking and smoking, certainly they become disqualified to discharge public welfare activities. Truthfulness is the basic principle for all religions. Four leaders of the human society, namely the sannyasis, the brahmana, the king, and the public leader, must be tested crucially by their character and qualifications before one can be accepted as a spiritual or material master of society. He must be tested by the above-mentioned criteria of character. Such public leaders may be less qualified in academic qualifications, but it is necessary primarily that they be free from the contamination of the four disqualifications, namely gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter.
Translations. Oh, that's the only verse. Oh, I believe. Okay. All right. So, again, therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmins, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with four above-mentioned religious principles. This section of the Bhagavatam, of course, deals with the punishment and reward of Kali. Punishment was that Kali was stopped from eating the cow, and the reward was, okay, but you can stay in my kingdom. However, there are conditions which Maharaj put on. You can only stay in these certain places where intoxication, gambling, illicit sex, and eating are taking place. And Kali said, well, there are no such places in your kingdom, therefore you're really kicking me out. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So, Kali, so very intelligent. And so, Preacher Maharaj made this compromise. All right, you can stay wherever people are hoarding gold. Kali accepted that. So, because people were accumulating money. But Preacher Maharaj then, very intelligently, gathered all the gold in the kingdom and gave it for sacrifice so that Kali would also have no place to reside. So, Kali was essentially homeless. Thanks to the good administration of the king. Now, Prabhupada is making this point that leaders have to be exemplary. You ever experienced working under a leader who you felt was hypocritical? Please don't raise your hands. It's disheartening, isn't it? You feel like the person who you're supposed to be serving, whom you are answerable, is hypocritical in their position. Then people follow leaders for one of four reasons. First is fear. They're afraid not to. The second is ambition. By following this person, I'll get this. The third is duty. It's just, okay, my duty is to follow. Ours is not to reason why, ours is to do or die. And then the fourth reason is love. So if the ideal leader can inspire love in his or her subjects, then that person will enjoy a wonderful relationship with the parents. So how do we inspire love in people? Well, the first thing is we do have to be exemplary and do what we are describing. You know the old saying, do as I say, not as I do. It's very helpful for me raising my child. This mantra. Because children are especially empowered to find out the discrepancies. So we just cut to the chase. That's it. But again, this is not inspiring for the follower. Invoking love and independence requires the exemplary behavior of the devotee. Whatever the leader does, the common people will follow in the footsteps. For example, if we have another nice principle in Toronto, no cell phones in the class. So leaders are looking at something. Well, everyone's going to. The leader is coming late for this. Everyone comes late. If the leader is cheating in some way, then everyone will feel okay, this is allowable. It's interesting in India. India has this great history of bribery. It's budgeted into projects, isn't it? There's some construction project, then there's a certain allocation for bribes. It's just built in because you know the various officials at various levels have to have their palms greased in order to get the application moved forward. So the Prime Minister of India now is noted for his honesty. Of course, every administration says we're going to clean up corruption. This leader has had perhaps more of an impact because he's a brahmachari, he's a very religious person, he's trained in the military, and he's more determined to actually clean it up. I'm not sure how successful he'll be in the long run. The point is that if there's corruption baked into the system, then nobody will feel inspired to be a good person. It's rather just becomes like dog eat dog, everybody. That is the antithesis of good leadership. First of all, the leader has to be exemplary. Second, the leader has to put the needs of the dependents before his or her own needs. This is easy to do in certain cases, such as when you're a parent. You're a parent, it's just very natural to put the needs of the child first. There are instances of parents doing superhuman feats of strength, lifting heavy objects in cars. Their children are in peril. There is no greater love, probably in the material world, than the love of a mother for a child. Fathers, but mothers and their children, that's the bond that naturally exists between us and Krishna. Krishna feels that way towards us, but we're more like the adolescents in the relationship. When your children are very young, you're the bestest mommy and daddy in the world. And by the time they're 12 or 13, they say, could you kindly move to the next state? Could you drop me off a block from school? What can we do? You tell your mom you're staying at my house, and I'll tell my mom I'm staying at your house, and then we'll go downtown. So I'm seeing way too many heads nodding. much can we get away with? When the child matures, then the child begins to appreciate what the parents have done. So in the same way in Krishna consciousness, when we mature, we begin to realize how kind Krishna is, how very gracious he is, how very tolerant, and how very deeply he wants us to be connected with him. It's really a miracle when somebody takes up Krishna consciousness. Because, as Krishna himself says, "Manusyanam sahasreshu astujatati siddhaye." Out of thousands of people, hardly one is even interested in spiritual life. This is why that preacher couldn't get into heaven. You know? It's so boring to hear unless we have a dynamic relationship with Krishna going on. Unless we're feeling connected to Krishna, or we really want to be connected, it just doesn't register, and therefore it becomes kind of dogmatic. Nobody wants to sit and hear propaganda over and over. However, if somehow we get a taste for hearing Bodhiyam Tasparasparam, which says that the devotees love to hear and chant and to exchange realizations about their spiritual lives. This is why living amongst devotees is such a special privilege, or to associate with devotees is such a special privilege, because there's a constant exchange of Krishna Katha. At least an attempt is there. This constant exchange of Krishna Katha enlivens the devotees who love to hear, and it bores the devotees who are not yet blessed with such a taste. So we can kind of gauge our situation. If we're bored, it doesn't mean we're human, it doesn't mean we're doomed. It just means that really what's happening is our mind is still in charge. We haven't controlled the mind. And therefore the messages are not penetrating enough. So what does it take to control the mind? To actually be a yogi. There's lots of yogis. I was just in Rishikesh. It was a wonderful experience in India. I've never been there. In the foothills of the Himalayas. Have you been?
Oh, it's on YouTube. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Especially after being in Calcutta or Bombay, urban hellscape, in this beautiful natural setting. The Ganga is there, and it's in the foothills of the Himalayas, all tree-covered hills all around on all sides, right? Fresh breezes blowing from the Himalayas. There's 400 yoga ashrams in that city. 400 yoga ashrams where Westerners primarily go to study yoga, hatha yoga. And so the streets are full of young men and women from Israel and Spain and Italy and Canada and Australia, all over the world. They're coming there to become yogis. And the business people there are really tuned in. 200-hour, 400-hour, 500-hour yoga training. And they spend a lot of money and thinking, okay, I'm going to go back and teach yoga in the West. But in fact, the demand is quite modest for that particular occupation. But anyway, the point is that when we are trying to control the mind, just exercising alone isn't enough. People can become very proficient at it. Yet, the mind is a higher echelon of yoga practice, mastering the mind. This is why in Kali Yuga, what was accomplished in earlier ages by very difficult processes, such as hatha yoga, or such as austerities or sacrifices, Kalotag Hari Kirtan, in this age, very easily accomplished just by chanting. So let's talk about chanting for a moment, because, again, we want exemplary leaders in the world. Following regulative principles for most people is really only possible by good chanting. If you don't have a taste for the holy name, then we're naturally going to look for a taste somewhere else. So this chanting, first of all, has to be, as Mahatma Prabhu writes, the most important activity of our day. Most important activity of our day. And why is it? It's because that's where our consciousness pivots for the whole day. If our japa is good, then we're likely going to be enthusiastic, we're going to be open-minded, we're going to be positive, we're going to be hopeful for the whole day. However, if we put off our japa, I'll do it later, or we're chanting but just thinking about all kinds of other stuff, then we can't realize the benefits. What are those benefits? In the second chapter of the first canto, Sutta Goswami describes Srinvatam Swapata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtan Vidyantaksto Vivadmani Vidhinoti Saritsatam. The process of Krishna consciousness is this partnership between us and Krishna. We do our part by hearing and chanting to the best of our ability, and then Krishna from within enacts the purification. Have you ever heard anyone say, or maybe you've said on some occasion, I got to work on myself. I got to work on myself. If I had the ability to fix myself, I probably would have done it a long time ago without bothering with God. But we lack that ability. This is the point. We're dependent on Krishna to reciprocate with our sincere prayer to serve him. And he does. He does. That's the amazing, miraculous thing about bhakti. It's a dynamic relationship. Other forms of yoga are very self-driven. And associated with that is some pride of accomplishment. But in bhakti, it is completely Krishna-driven. All we can do is surrender to the process, and then Krishna acts from within. And he promises he'll do that, and then he does do it. To those who worship me with love, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. Have you ever experienced getting intelligence from Krishna? What is it like? Give an example. Huh? Intuition. Can you give an example from your life?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes like I've been able to kind of see in retrospect people's motives and then make decisions for my safety based on that. It'll kind of hit me like a slideshow real quick. I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna like make some different adjustments in the way I approach that relationship.
To me, it's felt like this kind of inner consciousness in the heart that kind of like says, I think this is wrong, or yeah, you're going in the right direction. It's like it's a very subtle thing that you feel here. That kind, it's kind of, you hear this image of like a little devil and a little angel. It kind of feels like the little angel feeling like this is right, but it's not necessarily logical.
Not necessarily logical, but the little angel is saying. Okay, Jackson.
Kind of like what John said with the slideshow. Krishna gave like little pictures and fun little things. Today he gave me a little realization. The kind of like in Harry Potter, the wand chooses the wizard. The beads choose the chanter. And Krishna gave me some new beads.
Something that's not good for me, and then I get it from Krishna gives intelligence of remembering things how I did in the previous, before I felt like the activities. So yeah.
So yeah, intelligence is awakened, and then it becomes easier. Okay, now we're getting a lot of realizations. You wait for people, and then Bruce. Oh.
I would say Krishna given me a lot of inspiration artistically and meaning behind that. And I know in the past I've done some Krishna conscious art. And looking back, I feel like that was the most meaningful.
You're inspired by Krishna to do some Krishna conscious art, and then that is it.
When I was at Gasparilla Parade, I didn't have any energy to like dance how I like to dance. And I was feeling very confused. I was like, wait, I want to dance. I want to get hype, but I couldn't do it. But Christian made me realize that the reason why I wanted to dance was just to be seen and to be seen as that guy. And then I was a little bit less confused, but still felt with anxiety or still confused. So then I thought about Rosita, and I thought about this verse we read about Living versus Pudamani at that chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It said, godly men don't desire or go after prestige and things of that nature. And then I just felt so much more at ease. Even though I was like tired and moody, I was relieved.
We're dancing for Krishna, not for your own. Yeah.
And I was praying. I was praying to Krishna for a while to help me to dance for the right reason, because I felt like I was dancing, but every time I was dancing, something was off.
These last two have are similar. I mean, comments.
I noticed that anytime there's a situation of uncertainty, something happens there, something really, especially like when, for example, watching somebody, we don't really know what angle to take, and like certainly commenting, the dependence also becomes strong. There's something that kind of comes out, and it's definitely not like mystical.
It's beautiful because we put ourselves, when we put ourselves in a dependent situation, give Krishna a chance to act through us. Now, that was advising the way of giving class. Giving a class, don't go in with your laptop or notes, because that forces you to interact and think, and then puts you in a situation where Krishna can give you realizations on the spot. Brandon?
I was gonna say for me, it's whenever I'm like I have a situation where I don't really know what to do, or I just kind of I end up realizing I just need to surrender more. So then I pray about it. I say I surrender, and I pray that whatever's meant to happen will happen. And ever since I started doing that, when I'm dealing with a big situation, it always works itself out. But of course, I put it into action when Krishna presents something that I need to do. But I have noticed that it's a lot more peaceful going into it without anxiety. And so I've been surrendering my anxieties and just having faith.
Nice. Nice. It's interesting, the demigod life is meant for enjoyment, animal life is meant for suffering, and human life is meant for anxiety. We're always aspiring to be more like the demigods, but we tend to be more like the animals, one way or the other. This is something I wanted to discuss about leadership and dealing with surrender to Krishna. That the antithesis or the opposite of surrendering to Krishna is what? Surrendering to our mind. Yes, right, the mind. We're either serving Krishna or we're serving our own mental perceptions of how we should find happiness or how we can find happiness. So that's the tipping point in yoga. Surrendering to the mind or surrendering to Krishna. So this is where japa is so crucial. When we're chanting, we are putting the mind on pause. And that practice of putting the mind at pause allows us to then have the ability to do that during the day and be sensitive and tune into the messages that Krishna is giving us. That's the practice. That's why the japa is so important. It's like exercise. Again, you exercise and you get muscles. In the same way, you exercise the ability to put the mind on pause, then you get the strength to do that on command. Otherwise, the mind is just going to go on and on. Like we all have heard about how nice it is to control the mind. And when do we think about controlling the mind? When we're in anxiety, obsessed with something. The mind is just playing this loop over and over again, and you're so tired of it, right? Why can't I control my mind? It's because we weren't practicing earlier. We keep practicing all the time, not just when the mind is agitated, but all the time. Just giving ourselves the objectivity to say, my mind may not be right. My mind is saying this, and that may or may not be the reality. Just to be able to even question the leadership of the mind, the qualification of the leader. Right? Because then it allows us to pursue higher values and ideals. And that's how we become the better person we all aspire to be. The mind is the reservoir, the repository of all of our past experiences, this life and in past lives. So whenever we're faced with a situation, we're plugging into this AI. Yeah, actually, yeah, that is it. The mind is really Krishna's artificial intelligence. We plug in, it goes through all the process. Okay, this is how I can enjoy it right now. And if that doesn't work, you can try option B or C. So the yogi is the one who is able to at least question the production of the mind. Okay, mind is suggesting this. Maybe that's good, or maybe not. Let me consider. This is how we gain freedom from the tyranny of the mind. If our leadership role, therefore, is from the mental platform, we're doing it just for aggrandizement, we're doing it for ambition, then we will be really servants of the mind. However, if we're able to put the mind in perspective, then we can help others. Then we can actually do good for others. And as far as working on ourselves, nothing is better for learning spirituality than teaching. Any subject, right? The best way to learn something is to teach it. So this is why inherently there is teaching baked into Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said that an acharya is a person who does three things. Anyone know what are these three things? Well, acharya, first of all, is about philosophy. The acharya knows the philosophy. Second, lives, practices, right? And then teaches, right? As a way to produce, succinctly summarizes it. That was really good. I was using that on my show. Yes, let it, live it, and give it. So, in essence, is that we have our minds under control. We have our minds in a position where we have the option to apply what we have learned. Krishna conscious philosophy is great. However, if we don't apply it, then it's just like medicine on the shelf that we don't take. It's just like food on a plate that we don't eat. It could benefit us, but we have to put in our endeavor. Everyone remembers Mother Yashoda was trying to tie Krishna, but the rope was just a little too short, 2 fingers too short. So what are those 2 fingers? Our endeavor and Krishna's mercy. Yeah. Chanting is not just our endeavor. It's actually a call. It's a natural call from the heart that expresses feelings that are beyond the mental platform. sometimes people think, okay, you chant so many mantras and then you think you're going to be God conscious. It's not like a dumb ball machine. You know, you put it in a nickel and out comes Krishna. I've done my mantras and okay, now Krishna. Now let me do whatever I want. But we're calling to Krishna with a mood of recognition of our helplessness. Like this material world, you can't win, you can't break even, and you can't quit. You can't win, you can't break even, and you can't quit. In other words, we can't because we recognize we're in trouble. We are not in this position where we have many options at the mind are often. Really, we have only two. We can serve our minds or we can serve Krishna. So japa is where we make that decision every day. I was raised in Christianity, which is really a lovely faith. It's just been so distorted. One of the things that always resonated with me was I took up Krishna consciousness. Jesus said, if you want to follow me, you have to pick up your cross every day. Remember that? You pick up your cross every day. It's not a one-time thing. It's a daily thing. So in Vaishnava terms, you have to pick up your beads every day. Your beads will find you. But you also have to look for them. So obviously, early in the day is the best time for chanting. Whatever we do early in the day, we do better. And if we like to write, we write better early in the day. If we like to study, we study better early in the day. That's why those who are in school, don't pull an all-nighter. Just go to bed and then get up and study in the morning. If you like to sleep better early in the day. What's your priority? So we spend our days having this opportunity to hear and chant together. This is what leaders do. Leaders, actual leaders, are beyond the control of their mind. Actual leaders are acting out of love for their subjects and their dependents and their students. They're acting out of love and not out of any ambition or out of any fear. And if our leaders are acting out of love, we will love our leaders. That's just natural. When we feel, we feel cared for, we feel genuinely valued, then we automatically want to respond. This is how Srila Prabhupada did what he did. Because he genuinely loved the devotees. And you can imagine why and how much he felt after being alone in America for a year without any devotee association. Somebody had the slightest interest. It was so easy for him to value that person. So that mood of valuing people who are turning to God is our legacy from Srila Prabhupada. It still works. If we are in that space where we just want to give and give to the aspiring God-conscious people of this world, who are few and far between, but they're out there. They will feel that selflessness. They'll feel that genuine desire for care and care. Instead, there are many gurus who can take your money, but very few who can take your karma. So this is a quality of genuine leaders. They're not asking anything, they're giving. And that ability to give is made possible by following the principles of religion in one's own life. And then sincerely calling out to Krishna in helplessness and dependency in our own life. Not thinking that we're in a big position to do anything, but by Krishna's grace, maybe we can do something. This is Prabhupada's beautiful prayer on the Jaladuta. He arrived in Boston, and with this, such a beautiful prayer. He arrived in the Jaladuta, reached Boston. The captain invited him to hop off the boat and look around. So he did, and then he got back on the boat and wrote this prayer, Krishna, why have you brought me to this horrible place? You must have some business here, and I have no idea what it is. Anyway, It isn't. How could I ever convince these people? How could I ever convince them? They're just in the modes. How could I possibly only if you empower me could I possibly convince them? So if you want me to dance, make me dance. Make me dance. I have no bhakti, I have no knowledge, but if you like, you can fulfill the meaning of my name. So we'll stop there. Any comments?
The prayer from Prabhupada, I just remember that I believe Prabhupada wrote that in Bengali, and it wasn't really found until later, I believe. I was just thinking that Prabhupada's humility was so vast, he had these intimate feelings for Krishna, this prayer of being taught as a puppet. He just kept it to himself. It was just so intimate, and but Krishna wanted to show all the devotees. So I think Bhakti Charan found is, direct, yeah, and then they translated it. Or maybe, something like that. Somebody found it. They might have asked it, but it was found. The intimate thing is shared. This moment between one more thing. Last story. So the other question you asked about intelligence from Krishna, I was thinking sometimes you can really hear the super soul. And I heard a story last night actually. The devotee called and we were talking, and she shared how in Gitanagari, Bhakti Maharaj, when he was there, he was doing arati, and at that time there was a loan or something that was due in one day of $35,000. And he was just doing arati, and then he heard this voice, and the voice said, "Ask Bob." So he turns around and there's Bob in the temple room, and he goes to him after arati. Bob goes, "I won a lottery and I want to give all the money to the temple. How much is it? $40,000. It's so far out, this intelligence that Krishna gives. I had another story in mind, which was not as glorious, but still intelligent for Krishna. Share. We were in Vrindavan several years ago, and there was this devotee, and I was going to make a joke with her, and I heard the super soul yelling and screaming at me, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" But I did. And that devotee was so upset, screaming and yelling at me. I was like, "Oh my God." I'm like, at least I heard the super soul's voice. And I know to follow it next time.
That reminds me of the Beatles. They wrote a song called "Baby, You Can Drive My Car." Sing on and on. Yes, you can be the driver of my car. The last verse. Well, I don't have a car yet, but at least I have a driver.
A rare way for Krishna reciprocates his through dreams. And I just wanted to share that because I felt like some people have had dreams where through Krishna and or have like completely changed like the route of their life and their approach. They're different in a dream.
Prabhupada said that dreams of the spiritual master are spiritual significance. You have to be a little careful because you need to verify, is this a product of my mind or is Krishna speaking to me? So that's why we have Guru Shastra Sadi.
I can think of another instance where Krishna gave me some intelligence. This was before Krishna consciousness, when I was like just trying to raise my vibration to get to the highest possible vibration I could possibly get to. I don't know how, but one day, I don't know if I was meditating or it just spontaneously came to me, but something told me to just go in a room and chant a mantra with a bunch of people and dance like a madman. And that was how I was going to raise my vibration. So then it happened.
You got a general message, right?
I just wanted to appreciate your point on how
we still need to be careful about dreams.
With the spiritual master, of course, they're really significant. We still need to we still need to make sure that that the instruction we receive in the dream matches the instruction in real life. And I once asked my guru, because my guru was there, and I had a dream with my guru, and then I came downstairs, and it was right before Guru Puja, and I went up to him and I asked him this question, if we have a dream with you and you give us an instruction, should we take it as real? And he was like, if it matches the instruction that I give you in real life. and then I had an experience. It was actually a couple years ago. Gopal was there. I had this really, really vivid dream where this was after I had tried to make the ashram experience at Bhakti Center. And I had this dream where I got sent to Govardhan Eco Village to do an ashram experience at Govardhan Eco Village. And like Wisdom of the Sages, Kastuba and Raghunath were in the dream. It was like all happening. And after the dream, I was like, wow, maybe I'm supposed to go to Govardhan Eco Village to do this ashram experience. So then I had a darshan with my guru, and I, of course, told my guru about the dream, and he just laughed. He just laughed, and he was like, he was going like this. He was like, well, now I'm telling you in person, you would be like salt at Govardhan Eco Village, and at Bhakti Center, you're like a 5-course feast. So please stay at Bhakti Center. So I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to do that.
I think I told my two sort of inspiration stories, so I'll tell a dream story this time. When my guru had this issue with sannyas, it caused me some, mental agitation. So one time before the evening arati, I got there early, I bowed down to Prabhupada and I said, give me solace in this situation. And then, like a few days later, my god sister, Seva, who's the wife of Madhava, came up to me and said, I had a dream of Srila Prabhupada, and you were in it. And so I said, well, what did Prabhupada say? And he said, Krishna Kripa is my disciple. So I didn't have good information, so I didn't take it in that way. But I took it that Prabhupada really is a Shiksha Guru. He's looking out for all of us in all situations. And I'm sheltered in the Srila Prabhupada, and I felt really happy. And I couldn't have made it up because she had no clue that I offered that prayer. So I thought that was like powerful.
All right, anything else? All right, so it's time for our group picture. Chris, is it live enough out there? Yes. All right, so Chris, you want to get set up and then just let us know when you're ready. I think some people have
So we'll stop class there. Prabhupada ki jai.
Namaskar.